Hi there, everybody. Welcome to day 8, and we are continuing our reading in Matthew. This is now in chapter 6, and we are still hearing from Jesus in this chapter. I love this chapter. It's really full of some great things, including the Lord's Prayer and just some great verses to hide away in our hearts. And so let's kind of dig into what we read today. So at the beginning of Matthew chapter 6, it talks about giving to the needy. And then it gets into the Lord's Prayer right after that. What we see in this chapter is all about motive. And so when we are giving and being generous, it comes down to why we are doing it. So if we are, passing an offering plate or stopping by the offering box and we are dropping in a bunch of coins so that people can hear that we're tithing, then we're not necessarily doing it for the right reasons. Or if we're writing that big check while we're sitting next to a friend so that they can see how much we give, then we're not doing it for the right reasons. And so God really, again, is telling us that He looks at the heart. He's not about impressing others. And you have to remember that in the time, that's what the people were all about. They were about law, they were about keeping those laws, and they were about making sure people knew that they were keeping the law. And so we can find ourselves in that trap of legalism, and that just means we worry more about keeping the law than we do about the relationship with Christ. And so I think he reiterates here again that even if you're giving and doing it, doing something good, you can be doing something good with the wrong motive. So it's always important to check our hearts and to make sure we know why we are doing what we're doing, which leads into the Lord's Prayer. And he is saying, I know you're going to pray. Like, that's part of what I've called you to do. And so if you're going to pray, here is an example of how you can pray. And so I just love the Lord's Prayer. It's so simple. It's so succinct. It covers a lot of information in just a few sentences. And that's what, I used to think as a kid that the longer the prayer, the better the prayer. And I know now, even when our kids were young and at the dinner table, and it was like, okay, let's say prayers for our food and be thankful to God. And then they would just keep going and going and going and thank the Lord for everything, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And with their hearts, it was definitely them either thinking that they want to tell God they're thankful for everything, or that they feel like they just need to keep talking so that it would be a good prayer. So I think it's important for us to model even those short prayers, those simple prayers, for others, for our kids, for new believers, so that they realize, it's all about talking to God. It's about that relationship. And if we're praying to Him, whether it's in private or whether it's publicly, that it does not have to be a bunch of extra fluff. We can really just close our eyes or open our eyes and pour out what it is we want to say to Jesus. He does talk about, praying in secret, doing things in secret. And it doesn't mean that everything we do has to be done in secret, but it does say that it would be better if it's done in secret if you are caught up in that pride of motive. So if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then it's better for you to give or to pray in secret, so that it really does check your heart when you're doing those things. Then it does talk briefly about fasting. That was a big practice of the day. A lot of people still do that today. But it's the same idea that you don't want to, they were distorting their face. They were making it look like they were fasting. They weren't keeping that a secret. They were making it very obvious that to others that they were doing that. And so to make them think, to make others think that they were more religious and a better person because of what they were doing. So then the last few sections here talk about not laying up treasures here on earth because they pass away. Pastors will say you can't take it with you. And so I heard one pastor say, they're not going to have a U-Haul truck at your funeral. So it's not that you can't have nice things. It's not about having a lot of money. It's about why. Again, it's going back to that heart issue. And so we are to be good stewards of our money. So if you make a lot of money, be a good steward with it. If you make a little money, be a good steward with it. And that means that we do think about ahead of time, do I need a savings account? What am I paying for? Budget your money. Those are all things that we need to be thinking about, whether we have a lot or a little. And it does come down to, are we concerned more about the material things of this world, or are we looking at the eternal things of this world? And so if having more money, having the nicer car, the nicer house, if that consumes our thoughts, then we do need to take a step back and reevaluate where our mind is and what our thoughts are toward. And then it wraps up this chapter with kind of, to me, the summary of what he's trying to say. And in the end of chapter 6, he says, seek first the kingdom of God. That's it. That's your job. Seek first the kingdom of God. If you are seeking the kingdom of God first, if you are heaven-minded, then these other things won't matter to you. You won't worry. You won't be anxious, about those things of the things that God can take care of for you. He won't let you worry about those things because you're worried about the eternal, not about what's right in front of you. So think about that today as we dwell on this chapter. Are we seeking first the kingdom of God? Are we seeking first the things of the eternal? Or are we worried about what the worldly things are in front of us, whether it's material things or what's going to entertain us, or what are we going to do tomorrow, even for fun? Really check your heart today and make sure that you're doing things for the right reason. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.